Hi everyone, my name is Desmond Ngungok-in, and in this video I'll be talking about the things that I learned in the VC game, how it connects to the topics that I learned during the semester, the successful and the failure part in doing this game, and also how it differs in the real world situation. So let's talk about the first round. So I was in the VC4, we placed third overall in the rates of return out of 5 VC teams, and our reputation is also third in overall. We didn't invest too much in the reputation, hoping that the reputation can be achieved by the performance of the other startup teams that we invested in. In this round, I learned so many things since this is the first time for me to do the simulation. So I learned how to negotiate with other people. It is very important to have a good negotiation skills, especially when both individuals wanted the best outcome for themselves. Another thing that I learned is that we debate with the team of whether we should be accepting or declining the offer, and we also respected everyone's opinions and make sure that everyone knows the decision before we proceed to the decision making process. I also learned the importance of a good relationship with the startup team. We were using friendly and good language to communicate with the other startup teams that we invested in. One example that we can provide is that my teammates are actually affected by this small thing. This proved that attitude should be also considered. And the most important ones is that I learned how businesses usually runs and works. Even though this is just a small simulation, but I get a better picture of how investors and startups approach in investing. Moving on, there are some things that were successful and also not quite successful in this game. And one of the failures was that our team was actually quite picky with other startups' offers. So we still had like 25% of our initial $250,000 money, which is $63,000. So we just noticed at the middle end of the game that our cash balance will not affect the final results that determines who will have the highest rates of return on the investments. At the final days, since we believed that no other startups would want our investment, we even thought of investing in the reputation part. Another thing is that we get too risky in the beginning, where we invested in one startup team that was in the first position in the startup warm-up game, which is startup 2 team. We bought it for 7,000 shares and with around $8 per share in day 4. As we can see, the average of our share price is only around $3 to $5. Fortunately, they didn't require any anti-dilution because in the beginning, all of us were not quite familiar with the options in the investment offers, and their result was actually pretty good. Also, we thought that we would have a better advantage, but unfortunately, the other startup teams were also learning from their mistakes in the warm-up game, which makes them also be able to catch up and redeem themselves in the first round of the VC game. I was quite satisfied with our team's outcome. However, we could definitely be better and do better things if we were to start it over again. The successful part is that our team's communication was very good. We kept in touch with each other in the group chat every day for 5 days. We discussed about the offers we had to take. Additionally, each of us unintentionally focused on different startup teams. I was focused on Startup 2 team since I'm a close friend with the members, and also we monitored each team that we invested in. For instance, if their utilization is too low, we mentioned it in the group chat and let the person in charge for the startup to send emails through them or message them on Slack. These are just some of the examples that we discussed in the group chat. Now, moving on to the second round of the VC game, I was in Startup 8. Unfortunately, we were positioned last among the startup teams with only $483,000 as the founder shares and market cap of $621,000. Our marketing is actually second, but our R&D expenditures is positioned last, and that might be the reason why. I learned a lot of things while playing in the second round. Since only 2 of us in the team, we had to usually take control of the situation when someone is not be able to play the game. Becoming a leader and take decisions forward are the things that I learned while trying to get much earnings as possible. I learned that sometimes being more assertive is better while still discussing about the decisions. I was relying on my teammates' strategy and the results wasn't showing very great. I also learned how important to maintain cash and forecast in the business. This would be applicable in the real world situation. I also learned what part of the business to invest in, what are the things that affect the cash flow, and how all the things that related to our profit and cash. Even though it is very different to the real world situations, but I get a clearer picture of how businesses operate. I also learned dedication in this game, especially when other groups are also trying their best to get on top. So I also wanted to keep checking about the updates and how's it going on in the game. Now I'm going to talk about the successful part in the second round game. We were not taking too much investment, which is not that bad, and we also held a lot of money throughout the game, which might be good in the real world situation. And we also did not issue shares to the friends and family because the price was actually stuck at 25 cents per share. And we thought that it would be more worth it if we try and sell our shares to the other VC teams. Now, moving on to the failures, since it is very different with the VC teams, which has 4 people, we only had 2 people. And we found it quite difficult to actually keep up with the daily life and also the game itself, especially with only 2 people. We were also not communicating as often as I did in the first round, which leads to some miscommunications. One of the miscommunications is that at the last real life day, we didn't decrease the marketing and R&D too much, which led us to less earning in the last 91 days. Since day one, our approach and strategy to the game is quite different between me and my teammate. As what I learned from the brief discussion of the first VC round, it is better to invest in R&D since the start because at the end the profit would get even much better. However, my teammate didn't really want to apply that, and my teammate focused too much on the positive and the profit income of the business since the early days. Well, my point of view is that using a lot of money in the beginning for the R&D expenses is a lot better for the late game strategy. I wasn't quite strict with my decision because I thought that my teammate would be better and has more understanding in this game. However, unfortunately, we were ranked last. We also had too much money throughout the game, where we kept around $40,000, and we were not taking the risk in invest more into the R&D. This strategy might be applicable to the real world situation, I guess, but in the VC game with only 2 years, I think taking risk is the best decision. Now, the things that are related to the topics I've learned since the 12 weeks of this unit is that equity financing. As we learned about priced equity rounds, I implemented some of the learnings to this VC game. One of the learnings is anti-dilution. Although we didn't learn too much about the different types of anti-dilution, but the tutor have also discussed a bit about it and what that is. For example, like the full ratchet and also the weighted average. Also, I learned from the units saying that the higher the risk, the higher the potential return. I think this is also applicable in the VC game because if we're not taking too much risk, like what we did in the second game, then I think that we will not have a higher potential return basically. And also, I learned about the investor equity ownership percentage and how to calculate them. And also the forecasting the cash flow might also be a better approach, I'd say, for the VC game. However, it's something that we did not do in the VC game, which might help us with some calculations. Now, what are the things that differs with the real world situation? So now I'm going to talk about the things that differ with the real world with the VC game. So text was automatically included in the VC game. I didn't even realize it, but in the real world, tax is very tricky and everyone wants to avoid taxes. Another thing is that the startup teams have no business model and no innovation, different with the real world situation. Usually the real world has pitches to investors, what kind of businesses they are. And that is very important because investors are unlikely to invest in the business when the startup has unmet the market standards and doesn't even solve a problem. Now, also the valuation approaches is a lot in real life. However, in the simulation, it's only the last quarter earnings times 40 is calculated. Now, also in the real world, there are a lot of other factors that can affect the market share. For instance, the demand of the products, the brand awareness, pricing, etc. Also, the friends and family equity were stuck in 25 cents per share, which in the real life, it could differ according to their businesses and also their families' offer. Now, the pricing point and the products are not shown in the VC game. Different with the real world situation, we need to see the market demands and also what the product we delivers to the customers so that we can know the market better and we can attract more customers. Another thing is that bootstrapping might appear in the real world, but in the VC game, I think it is very difficult to bootstrapping, especially when there's a fixed time of 2 years. We definitely needed more money from the VC, and how long it takes a startup to really start bootstrapping is different in the VC game and in the real world. And also, starting a business and building it is extremely tough in the real world because it has lots of ups and downs and all the different sort of things that we need to think about. However, in the VC game, the simulation has already prepared the things for us, such as the R&D, the marketing, and also the PP&E, as well as the utilization, which is different to the real world situation. And the last thing is that I think that negotiation in the VC game is actually relatively easy for us because we didn't have that much of a process in negotiating and we just chat through the Slack. But I think in the real world, it's going to be a lot different and a lot more complex. For example, I did a Shark Tank pitch in BEX 5120 with Josh, which actually we went a lot to get the good deals. And also from the real Shark Tank show, as what I've watched, finding a good deal is actually very difficult. And I think that's it for me. Thank you very much for watching this video. I really learned a lot of things in this unit and also especially in the VC game, such as negotiation, R&D investments, and also debating in each team and what things should we do and what things are that we shouldn't do. And I really am grateful for this opportunity that I can play in this VC game. Thank you very much.